Mike Pompeo. Mike, how are you, sir?
Glenn, I'm great. How are you today?
I'm really good. I've been looking forward to this. I hope we find time to sit down for a longer podcast because
I promise you I'll do it.
Okay, good. I've got so many things for you, but I want to start with something that is in your book that I absolutely love. When you met Kim Jong-un in North Korea, the meeting began with Kim saying what to you?
It was really quite something. Easter weekend 2018, clandestine mission, dark night, flew in, met with Chairman Kim. I had one colleague with me from the CIA. And the first thing he says to me, I walk in, there's lots of theater, and we walk in, and he says, Mr. Director, I was CIA director at the time, he said, Mr. Director, I did not think that you would come since you've been trying to kill me. Obviously through a translator. And I remember, Glenn, you'll appreciate this. I'd prepared for this. We'd studied. What might he say? This was not on the bingo card. and so I remember I hear the translator. I paused for just a second, and I thought, well, that's pretty tough. And I said, Mr. Chairman, you should know. I still am trying to kill you.
Oh my God!
And my colleague smiled. Andy Kim, great guy, smiled, and then the translation hits him, and he laughed too, which was very heartening to me.
Yeah, that's
it is kind of
that's good when you're standing with a dictator who kills people and he's on his turf.
He knew it was tongue in cheek a little, in the same way that his barb at me was, but I think it also set the course for the relationship that we built over the coming years.
How would you describe the American deep state? And did you see it in action? And what is it exactly?
Oh, Glenn, it's yes, I saw it. It is real. One can describe it as the deep state or the resistance. But here's what it really is. Here's how I came to experience this. Really, at the State Department, less at the agency, to be honest with you. It is a left of center, left of left, perhaps left of center bureaucracy that is deeply of Washington, D.C., deeply establishment. And so when you have someone like President Trump or me who says, those didn't work, we're going to try it a different way, we're going to take a little more risk, we're going to defend America first. Oh, my gosh, Glenn, it was a mess.
I bet it
was. They resisted what we did. They undermined. They would leak memos. I saw memos in the press before they got to my desk, Glenn, so many times. And this is problematic, not because of me. It's problematic because that's not what the Constitution requires. It's not how our founders thought about America. And so the next president, it's going to take it's a boatload of work. It's going to take a while, but this can be fixed.
How can a president come in, be elected? Because I'm concerned. I agree with term limits, but term limits also for people who are serving in Washington, D.C. in all jobs, all levels. How can you clean this up without shutting it down and, did you unplug it and plug it back in? That's pretty much what we have to do.
No, that's a great analogy. Yes, unplug it. No, you gotta break it down. And by the way, not just the State Department, good parts of the Justice Department, most especially the Civil Rights Division, the entire Department of Education. These places are lost. And so, yes, the next president. There's two things I'd say. First, you got to get your team on the field. One of the things we did not do is we were 2 years into the administration, and we still had Obama people occupying political positions. That's just a failure, and we got to get good at that. The conservative movement has to get good. Just like we have to collect and harvest ballots, we've got to get good at being fearless about terminating the bad guys and promoting the good guys.
We do.
And then second, big, deep structural reforms inside these. And it'll cost political capital, Glenn. I can see why a president would not do that. You got a million things. But this is a lasting change that one can make about how you do hiring, how you get rid of DEI programs. We had 3 unions at the State Department, Glenn. Nobody even knows this. Right? Every one of my career employees was covered by a collective bargaining agreement. You can't promote merit. You can't fire those who aren't on the team. This is a calamity. But it is fixable. You put a good team in. You put good cabinet members in. They hire the right folks. You can clean it up. It will take years, I'll be honest, because you have to get the feedstock right. The talent that comes in has to be American, patriotic, not about being part of the Washington establishment. But it is doable with serious and thoughtful effort.
I'm sure you know that I'm one of the chief conspiracy theorists on the World Economic Forum and the Great Reset.
Yes.
Do we have a lot of time? I mean, it is very concerning with tech and the way it seems the entire West is throwing in their lot with a very authoritarian style plan.
I'm very concerned about it. Time is short, not hours, days, weeks, months, but we are on the precipice of heading down a direction. Glenn, you know this. It starts in the schools. Right?
Yep.
Teach kids garbage, teach kids crap. If parents don't know what's going on there,
Yep.
The next generation doesn't understand logic, reason, the things that we know prevent us from being in a liberal, small L liberal society that has made America such an exceptional civilizational hero. We got to get it right. It is a collective. It is in all of our big institutions. I'm very worried. I was a soldier a long time ago now. I'm worried about our military headed down that same path of forgetting what its mission is. That is an institution that is central to culturally and from a security perspective. And when we get these things wrong, Glenn, hard to get back from.
We're talking to Mike Pompeo. He has a book out that is extraordinarily frank and great. It's called Never Give an Inch. He's a former CIA director and former U.S. Secretary of State. Let me ask you a couple of questions here. First of all, Ukraine. I mean, I've done enough research on Ukraine and the Biden administration and the Obama administration that is deeply corrupt. I don't mind, aiding and praying for and even helping privately, people who want to be free. But I'm very concerned where we're going on this because it appears to me everybody who is in charge is like, yeah, let's go. We're going to war. Do you agree with tanks being sent over and offensive weaponry?
Glenn, I actually do, but not for the reason that some have articulated. Your predicate there is exactly spot on, and I talk about this a little in the book. And you're right; it's a pretty wide open document.
Yeah.
It's got you know me long enough, Glenn. This is how I think about something. So not for the reasons often articulated. Ukraine's got huge corruption problems, but my concern is about the American people. We lost deterrence, right? Vladimir Putin didn't invade Europe on our watch. He took a fifth of Ukraine under Obama. He went at it again as soon as we left under Biden. We cannot allow him to continue to roam about Europe freely. The innocent civilian lives are tragic, but there's an American interest there. It's not, and I think we can do this. He hasn't asked for our kids yet. We shouldn't send our young men and women. He didn't want the 82nd Airborne. He's just asking us to provide him with tools and capabilities, and that's the quickest way to bring this to a conclusion. And the quicker it concludes, the less likelihood that Putin does something really dumb that draws the whole world into this damn thing, which is a real danger. And I spent a fair amount of time with Vladimir Putin. I'm more concerned about it than others. I think he is not going to go quietly into the night. So if we can get the Ukrainians what they need, they're prepared to have their own kids fight and die. That's something that matters to every American, and we ought to try and get it right there.
So Mike Lee spent a lot of time yesterday looking at the Seymour Hersh article and trying to track down. He's coming on the air in about an hour to tell me what he found. He said initially he was disturbed because he didn't believe it, but he also kind of did. I mean, he didn't. He said, and I hate to put words in his mouth, but he was like, these are the kinds of things that now we do need to actually seriously question because these kinds of things could happen. But he didn't think it was true. As former CIA director, the Nord Stream pipeline, do you think we had anything to do with that at all?
Let me begin by saying I don't know. I don't have access to that kind of information any longer.
But see, that's what Mike was saying. He was disturbed that he
by the way,
didn't
he should
know.
have access. He's a United States senator.
Right.
He should have access to that.
Right.
I'm glad he's going to go suss it out and figure out what happened there. I'll say this. Joe Biden wouldn't shoot down a balloon over Montana. The chance he would blow up a pipeline that belonged to the Germans seems low to me.
Okay. All right.
It seems out of character.
Good. Okay.
But goodness, we should figure it out. Look, I think it's more likely than not that the Russians actually did this. I've read the piece. There are a couple comments from Victoria Nuland, who works at the State Department.
Yeah.
Who worked at the State Department, and from the president himself. They're kind of odd statements, so we should go figure it out. But my sense is, if you maybe take my own money, I think this was a Russian operation aimed at denying energy to what they thought would be a cold winter in Europe that just hasn't panned out.
And the Chinese spy balloon. I mean, we spent $1 million on a rocket to shoot it down with a $40 million plane, and then what do they say? And they're saying, oh yeah, well, it was not a risk. Well, then why did we shoot it down? What is this?
They have dissembled since the beginning. This was a spy operation by the Chinese Communist Party. They were clearly collecting at least imagery, pictures, probably signals too, trying to listen to what was going on, and they were also testing our air defenses. And finally, they were testing President Biden to see what he would do. And, someone asked me yesterday, would this have flown over America that way for 5 days under the Trump administration?
No
and I said, yes, and I would have been the former Secretary of State very quickly. And it was funny, Glenn, you remember they came out and first said, oh, this happened under Trump. And we all came out and said,
no, it didn't.
I guess we were all just smoking dope, right? Come on. And the truth of the matter is that we know they lied. No one knew about this before. This was a blunder on their watch. Not so much about the collection. Okay, that's some risk. But Xi Jinping now is confident that he can push this president around, and that's
right.
That deterrence model that we had, Glenn, that was so important to the American people. When you lose that, you create space. What's the old Southwest Airlines line? Feel free to move about the cabin. Right? I think the bad guys are feeling pretty damn free to move about the cabin, and if you live in Arizona, or Tennessee, or Montana, that creates an awful lot more risk to your kids and grandkids.
Is China the risk I think it is? And is it how much of a role does the business dealings of the Biden administration or Biden and his family have to do with giving China a pass on so much?
Boy, I don't know if that's the motivation for their failure to confront this greatest threat to the United States, the Chinese Communist Party. It could be we should get to the bottom of everything that's on that laptop and figure out where the leverage might be from the Chinese Communist Party. Not just President Biden, but lots of folks in his administration were doing lots of business in China before they came into office.
Mitch McConnell is a big one too. Mitch McConnell.
By the way, totally not partisan. Get this right for America. This isn't about D's and R's or putting on the yellow helmet or the blue helmet. This is about protecting the United States. Glenn, they're inside our institutions all across America.
I know they are.
They're inside our universities. They had a massive spy operation being run out of the consulate in Houston, Texas that I shut down, and we'd let it go on for years. If we get a chance to do the podcast, I'd love to spend more time because my fear from the Chinese Communist Party isn't about something that might happen in Taiwan or Japan or Vietnam. It's what's happening inside the gates here, and every American should be aware of it, and we should protect ourselves. And we can be successful, and I believe we will. I see no evidence this president's prepared to do that.
Well, Mike, I appreciate your time, and we will, I'll have my office reach out to yours today, and let's book some time on a podcast because
we'll make it happen. Glad
you have a lot of information. Thank you so much. God bless.
Thank you, sir.
You bet. Former Secretary of State and former CIA director and author of the book Never Give an Inch, Mike Pompeo.